Every technique in jiu-jitsu has a setup, an entry, and a finish. We just spent a lot of time going over the best way to enter the omoplata position. Now, when we get to that standard omoplata position, when I have his shoulder controlled and I have the grips that I want to control that position before I attack and submit. Now, the obvious goal, we're always working inevitably toward the submission. The omoplata is a shoulder lock, where I hyper-rotate my opponent's shoulder. There are three different types of joint locks in jiu-jitsu: hyperextension, an armbar, we make the arm go too straight; hyper-rotation, like a kimura or an omoplata, where we rotate a joint beyond its flexibility; and hypercompression, which is a slicer, and we'll show one of those later on. But the classic omoplata submission is the shoulder lock. So I'm going to show you the ideal finish for when we have our partner flattened out, his posture broken, and his base destroyed, and then we can finish at our leisure, and then we'll work on what happens when we can't destroy our opponent's posture. So however I get into the omoplata position, maybe I get into it from the closed guard, where I hip out, or from the lasso guard. However I get into it, right? Get into the omoplata. Grab his elbow, grab the pants. Step on the mat, hip away, extend out. I'm going to chop to get up, have my elbow on his hip. Now if Eric tries to get up, really, really hard. I'm using my knee to pin his shoulder to the mat. That's really important. We're going to work on some solo drills to get this position, but this is the ideal omoplata position. Now all I do, and we've discussed this a couple times, the main detail here is we don't want to lift our hips too much because we've done really good work to flatten our partner's hips out. We want to keep his hips flat. So whatever shoulder I'm attacking, I want to act like I'm going to whisper in the ear by that shoulder. And you notice that I don't raise my hips as much because that might let him get his base back. So that's our classic omoplata finish. The beautiful thing about flattening that person out first is now all of his traditional defense options, posturing up, rolling over his shoulder, stepping over my head, all of which we'll address later, are not available to him. So we're going to flatten him out and then finish. So we always want to attempt to flatten our partner out just so that we defeat the defenses before they happen. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But sometimes you have an opponent whose posture is too good, whose base is too strong, and we're not able to flatten him. We're still able to finish the omoplata, and I'm going to show you how to do it now. So I enter the omoplata, however I get there. Lasso guard today. I get my grips that I want, and I try, but I'm unable to flatten Eric out. Now the main thing that we want to avoid here, and where I think most of the mistakes come in, is we don't want to just kind of try to sit up. Because if I try to sit up, I need to have Eric's hip blocked. And so what most people will try to do is just sit up really quickly and block the hip. The problem is this becomes a race, and in jiu-jitsu, we don't ever want our moves to be attribute dependent. I always want to assume my partner is younger, stronger, faster, and able to react with more athletic acumen than I have. And so I want to put structural advantages in place. So if I just try, and Eric's going to look to his left and roll over his right shoulder, I'm going to race him, and I'm going to try to block his hip before he does that. Right? Now there are definitely things that we can do from here. And later on in the DVD, we're going to get into what I call topside control and controlling that position, but that comes later. If we can avoid having to deal with the defense at all, that's what we really want to do. So instead of just trying to sit up, we're going to have a couple of strategies for blocking the hip. Now, again, one thing that I want us to continue to try to do is chop with this leg, because that gives us some momentum, and instead of me just trying to get up with my core, it's like the whole weight of my body coming up, and that can enable us to sit up quickly enough. So sometimes you're able to sit up quickly and get the hip blocked before your partner can roll. And if you can do that, awesome. But here's another strategy for getting there. So I have my standard grips. Grip behind the elbow, grip on the pants. I'm going to transfer. I'm going to pinch my knees tight to make sure his elbow doesn't escape. Another theme I want you to remember, we don't want his elbow to escape or else we've lost the omoplata. I come and grab his belt. Before I sit up, I'm going to switch my belt grip, belt to belt. One hand on the belt, two hands on the belt. Now, chop up and sit up. And now, as you can see, even though I wasn't able to disrupt his base, all I'm going to do is the same thing. My knee and my mouth are going to head toward his ear. And I hyper-rotate his shoulder joint. Shoulder joint still hyper-rotates, even though he's not flattened out. So one more time, let's rotate this way. if I'm down here, I gotta get up here to block my partner's hips before he rolls. So either I have to be very quick or I have to time it exactly right. You know, if this is possible, cool. It's not always possible. So instead, I don't want his elbow to escape. I have to pinch my knees to make sure his elbow doesn't escape. And I grab his belt. This is gonna stop him from rolling. Then I transfer to this hand. My elbow drops by his hip. So now if Eric tries to roll, it's gonna be much harder. Now I sit up. Now I block my head. My legs make an S in the sort of pigeon pose that we do for the omoplata. My knees pinning his shoulder. My knee's gonna drop down toward his ear. As I jet, rotate his hip. So a couple of themes, so concepts, jiu-jitsu techniques are made up of concepts and details. The concept I want you to remember most while finishing is we always want to break his posture and base because we don't want to deal with any of the problems that him having posture and base give us. He can defend in a lot of ways. If we just prevent that, no worries, we've got the finish. The other concept is we always want structure in place. Structure allows me to move, and movement allows me to create better structures. So if I just try to leap from one structure to another, right, like I have the leg, the pants leg, and I try to like leap up to the shoulder or to the hip, I might get it and I might not. If I don't get it, now I'm dealing with all sorts of other problems. So we're gonna go belt to belt, sit up, and then stop our opponent from defending, and then finish from the omoplata, even if we can't flatten him out.